My name is Urban Winkler. I'm coming from Upper Franconia, the northern part of Bavaria. My village, called Weissenohe, is located 25 kilometers north of Nuremberg. A little village with 1,000 inhabitants, placed in the cozy hills, small mountains of Franconia. If I shall describe my brewery, I try to imagine how the approach is. If you drive towards Weissenohe, already in a distance of 8 to 10 kilometers, you see the huge sandstone building with the church tower. As you enter the village, you cross a small creek, go up a little hill, turn right, go through the arch and enter the courtyard of the former monastery. On the left-hand side is a building out of the 14th century, which was the stable and the place for the cows and the horses during monasterial times. You see, it's the sign of the monastery. On the left upper corner, it's the sign of the one who presented the monastery to the order of the Benedictines. And the next on the right upper corner is the sign of the Benedictine order, and on the bottom the sign of the ruling abt. The abt itself mainly was the second-born son of a duke's family, and there was no place for him as a duke or an earl or something like this, so he went to an orden and he presented his sign in this bottom shield. And 1827 was the time when my grandpa bought the brewery. The dominating building is the monasterial building. You see the big church tower. Under it you have the entrance into the church. The building, as you see it here, was finished at the end of the 17th century.
Do you know if how early they were brewing?
We don't have any documents left, because during secularizations all the documents were taken away to the other monasteries, and my former brewmaster tried to do some research, but he didn't find any document containing the word beer or malt or hop or something like this. Well, from my personal view, I estimate that brewing beer, because it was part of nutrition, was done nearly at the same moment when the monastery was built up and invented, because beer really was part of nutrition and not just as a drink of amusement. Okay, yeah. So I think we are one of the oldest monastery breweries. I think so. It's late Baroque. One should go in front and have a look at the...
You know, in America, a lot of people would really think it was strange and maybe even bad that you had a brewery so closely related to the church. Sure. But you can't really complain about that because the monks themselves had the brewery.
The Benedictine Monastery was founded in the year 1052, during the time when many Benedictine monasteries like Weihenstephan, Andechs were founded. They were presented to the Benedictines by a noble person, hoping to save their souls by giving property to their monks. The monastery was inhabited and run by the monks till the year 1812. And from 1812 till 1827, the former head brewer of the monastery, which even in this time was not a monk but was a private person, kept on brewing in the same place, but was only allowed to sell the beer in the restaurant right in the monastery. This was too little business for him, so he had to quit, and he sold out the brewing rights to a family of a village nearby. This family bought the brewing right to build a dowry for one of her daughters. They added some land and enlarged the restaurant, and with these three bases, my brewery existed almost till the end of the Second World War. Short before the end of the Second World War, my grandma had to stop the restaurant because there was the lack of nutrition, there was nothing to cook in the kitchen, nothing to hand out to the public. So she closed the doors because it was the time of starvation in Germany, and people were really keen on finding something to eat, and she had almost to protect herself and her family to keep the others out. My dad married my grandma's daughter in the year 1952 and enlarged the brewery. He raised the output almost by 500% and finally stopped farming due to a very small scale farming around 1970 and concentrated more on brewing. This gave me the chance to take over the brewery in the year 1999 as an independent brewery big enough to live with my family on. And my son is going to finish his school right now. He's doing his exams and he decided to be a brewer and he will start his apprenticeship. So after my 5th generation, there's the 6th generation represented by my son to come. The former monastery brew house, which was right behind the stables, was transferred to the new building on the right side around 1900. Later on, my grandpa added some buildings around 1930 to 1940, and while rebuilding the brew house, my dad improved the building, put on a new roof, added some new windows during the 1970s. The brewery itself is not as spectacular as the buildings around. It was built in 1972 by my father. The brew house itself, it's a Hubmann brew house, as it was mode in the 70s. The brew vessels behind the wall. My dad forced me to do traditional brewing methods. Instead, modern researches and techniques tell you something else. Usually they tell you have to save energy, you have to produce faster, you have to do everything cheaper. And the old methods need more time, need more attention, and by this they are more expensive than all the other ones. But they give you big advantages. Like, for example, if we do a brew of beer, we could do it in the so-called infusion, which is fast and cheap and needs less energy, but we still stick to decoction. Even our Pilsner beer, which is a light beer, we do in a 1 mash decoction. You can also see it like this. From behind it looks like this. The amber colored beers we do in a 2 mash decoction, and our dark beers like the Doppelbock we do even in a 3 mash decoction. This needs lots more time, lots more energy, but it's worth it because the decoction method gives the beer a special body. I remember the times when I came back from my study, I was full of new ideas with new recipes, new beer styles, and my dad even forbid me to do this, and he said, no, you have to stick to the rules, you have to stick to the tradition we have. And now, almost 20 years later, I understand why he did this. Because our beers shall taste the same year after year. We don't want to change our taste like fashions going into this or this direction. Our art is to do out of changing raw materials, which are different each year. Hops are different, barleys and the resulting malts are different each year. Therefore, my art is to harmonize this changing raw materials to a constant quality which offers beers to my consumers which are impressive but still are suitable for all their use without being a mass product like most of the industry beers. As we're a traditional brewery, we still try to keep the old methods, and one of these brewing methods is doing open fermentation. I still stick to it. Open fermentation means we don't close the basins where the beer is main fermented for 1 week, they're still open. This gives me the chance to look on my beers. I don't have to measure it with thermometers and technical stuff. I can see it, I can feel it, I smell it. So I have a feeling towards my beer. This is why I still like this kind of fermentation, and it gives me one big advantage. The foam carries out brown substances. These brown substances are proteins and hop leftovers, which usually, if you don't take them out of the beer, give the beer hanging on bitterness in your throat. So with an open fermentation basin, you have the possibility to use like a big spoon, going over it, taking off these brought out stuff and purifying the bitterness. We still ferment in small lying tanks. We don't use cylindrical conical tanks, because if the beer is too high in a tank, the gas washing, which is done by the carbon dioxide bubbles coming up from the yeast, transport out bad flavors out of the beer, work until a height of about 2 and 2.5 meters. So if cylindrical conical tanks are too high, this gas washing is not as good as it is in small tanks. Therefore, I stick to my small tanks, which are hard to work on because it's lots of cleaning work, but this gives the beers a certain type of purity. Okay. Do you want to see the cellars too?
Is already have the lagering tanks?
Yeah, the tanks.
So you don't have smell-o-vision because it's a nice fermenting smell.
We lager in the tanks approximately 3 to 4 weeks for the amber-colored middle strong beers. The bock beer is fermented 8 up to 10 weeks in these tanks. All over Germany we are obliged to the purity law, which was founded 1516. Nowadays everybody recommends the purity law as a rule for pure beers without any stabilizers, without any influences, without prolongation of shelf life. In the purity law there is written to use only barley, malt, water and hops, nothing else. And the intention was to save nutritious grains like rye or wheat for the nutrition of the people, and only the pure barley was allowed to brew beer out of. This made our German beers very narrow in their distinction. What makes our beer special is our customers' taste. Our customers want to have same taste all years long. So this purity law is a little bit meant like handcuffs for us German brewers, but it brings out very small but fine differences between the beers. Nowadays there are many methods to go somehow around the purity law. I really appreciate the organic standards, because organic standards fulfill what people expect out of purity law. A transparency, knowing where the raw materials come from, not use of any other ingredients as you receive it from your farmer. And from my point of view, the organic standards should be integrated into the purity law, and altogether it would fulfill what the customers expect from a purity law beer.